You guys loved our beginner guide and flooded the comments with requests for more. So here we go. How to play jungle in Honor of Kings at a pro level. We broke the beginner's guide down into 3 parts, covering the early, middle, and late portions of the game. This one will be a bit different. We'll be going over 4 topics in great detail: buffs, ganking, objectives, and lastly, the little things. If you're able to apply everything in this video, you will be better than 90% of jungle players. Let's get started. Buffs. We already taught you the basic opening route to start the game, but let's go deeper. Generally, it's best to secure your blue buff first at the start of the game. Without it, you'll probably need to return home to regain mana, wasting time that could have been used for farming or ganking. Early game, it's possible for the enemy to steal one of your buffs, so if you're going to leave one vulnerable, it's better for that to be the red one. If you get the blue buff at the start of the game, there's usually no need to go mid. However, if you decide to get your red buff first, you should go middle after clearing camps to secure a little extra gold, followed by then going for your blue buff and camps. This section is not about ganking, so we'll only touch on this next part lightly. If you complete your opening route and go to the clash lane, know that you can teleport to either middle or farm lane after helping down there. So it's okay to spend a little extra time attempting to gank that side. Early game is also one of the best times to gank the clash lane. Once they reach level 4, clash lane heroes typically gain access to some sort of escape button ultimate move. Think Lu Bu for example. But back to the topic of buffs. If you're a beginner jungle player or simply not that great at it, this next part might be eye-opening for you. Did you know that it's possible to always know the enemy jungler's next move? At any point in the game where you have vision of the enemy jungler, I want you to look at them closely. Below their feet, you'll be able to see what buffs they currently have, the same way you see your own. This is valuable information that most of you are not making use of. Seeing what buffs they currently have lets you know where they're likely coming from and where they will likely go next. Here's an example. If you see the enemy jungler fighting in the farm lane with a red buff below their feet, this means that they didn't get their blue buff yet. Either because it hasn't spawned, or it did spawn, but they didn't make getting to it a priority. So, after they finish in the farm lane, guess where they'll be going next? That's right, to their blue buff. Another example. You're in a team fight and the enemy jungler is there as well. Look below their feet and see what buff they have. Whichever color is missing is where they will be going after the fight. If they die during the fight, the missing buff is where they will most likely try to go once they respawn. Okay, so now you know to pay attention to the enemy's active buffs. But what should you do with that information? You go where they will be going next. Doing so, you either A, steal a buff before they can even get there, or B, fight with them at their buff, possibly stealing it, killing them, or both. Doing this successfully will frustrate the enemy jungler, causing them to possibly become tilted and make more mistakes as the game goes on. And even if that doesn't happen, you're stealing gold and making it harder for them to play effectively without buffs. Hearing all of this, you probably have some questions. Let's go over the most likely ones. 1. Should I prioritize stealing the enemy buff over getting my own if both have spawned? If there is a high percentage chance of successfully stealing it, then yes, go for it. If there is a low chance of success, get your own first, because if you fail, you'll just have wasted time. 2. If I get the enemy buffs, do I still need to get mine as well? Early game, yes. Late game, if you're stealing both their buffs, no, you do not need to get your own. That is, unless you've gotten their buffs, camps, and cleared minion waves. Then, if there is no team fight or dragon to capture, you get your own buffs. But simply, late game, if you're invading their jungle and stealing both buffs, unless there is nothing else of importance to do, you do not need to go back and get your own buffs. Doing so would be failing to prioritize the most important things. In fact, it's a good idea to leave them to your team's farm lane player if you're taking the enemies. Last question. 3. If they steal my buffs, what should I do? Early game, if your buff is stolen, you should clear what camps are left. Go middle to secure some gold, then try to steal the enemy's buff of the same color. 9 times out of 10, if the enemy jungler is competent, after stealing your buffs, they'll go get their buff of the opposite color to get a complete set of red and blue. You don't need to succeed in stealing one of their buffs here in the early game, but you should at least try. After this, know that it's possible that they will try to steal that same buff again. You should secure the stolen one first during your second rotation, especially if you confirm the enemy jungler is on that side of the map. Outside of the early game, it's similar. You should try to steal theirs, secure extra gold from the lanes, and be sure to protect it next time. Be on time for your buff spawns. This cannot be stressed enough. In the comments, let us know what other questions you have about buffs. With that said, it's time for ganking. There are 2 major things you need to be doing for successful ganks. The first is, go back from the back. As much as possible, you should be going from the back when attempting to surprise the enemy. This makes it harder for them to escape. If your team is fighting them from the other direction, it splits their focus. All in all, this is the best way to attack. Doing anything else is just throwing away opportunities. Don't do this. Do this instead. Next is a major piece of advice. Remember this, and you will see an impact in how your games play out. Like using buffs to predict the enemy jungler, you can use minion waves to predict the entire enemy team. When you see minions fighting in a lane, you know an enemy will come to clear it. And there are 2 simple reasons for this fact. They want the gold, and they need to protect their towers. This is a simple truth. Anytime there is a wave to be cleared, an enemy will come. Use this for ganks. Wait nearby in a patch of grass, and you will often find an enemy excitedly coming by to secure some gold. Do not stay there for too long, as doing so will take up your precious farming time, but keep this as a potential play. There are 2 great situations to pay attention to that can get you started on implementing this. 1. The middle player rotating from top or bottom lane back to their own. Or 2. The enemy farm lane player rotating back from middle to their own lane. You don't need to use minion waves as opportunities to hide and surprise the enemy, but it is a safe bet that will get you started. We've previously discouraged waiting around in the bushes, but there are times when it makes sense. In some lanes, you can even wait for your teammate to initiate a fight and then surprise the enemy by making it a 2-on-1 fight in your favor. Our final tip on ganking is simple. We want to make sure we put it out there just in case some of you are doing anything different. In team fights, focus your hits on the enemy's high DPS players. Don't waste your attacks on tanks. But please do not take that to the extreme and never attack those players. Of course, if they're weak, finish the kills. The point is to prioritize the right enemies. Once you take out the real damage dealers, your odds of survival and winning the team fight go up. But objectives win the game, so let's talk about those. Starting with dragons. We've already covered the basics of this in our beginner guide, so let's get right to some of the more specific cases. Generally, you should not be securing dragons alone. The time it takes to do that is wasteful. Be sure to always call your team for help. Whether they show up or not is another story though. Dragons are not your top priority. They are not even your second priority or the third. In the community, a lot of players complain about their jungler not getting objectives. We don't want to add to that problem. The point is this: get the dragons in rhythm. Jungle players rely on rhythm. You should essentially be skating through the map, being perfectly on time for all you need to do. There should be no awkward movements, hesitations, or inefficiency. In the case of dragons, what this means is, if dragons spawn, don't stop what you're doing and run over to them. Instead, finish what you were doing, then make your way to the dragon, doing all other important things in between. Here's an example route. This is efficient and prioritizes the most important things. If you're trying to secure a dragon, especially mid or late game, it's best to have the enemy distracted with something else. For example, clearing minion waves like we spoke about earlier. Beyond minion waves, they can be distracted by a teammate pushing hard on a tower opposite of where the dragon is. Rhythm aside, the higher your chance of securing the dragon safely, the better. You've definitely experienced it, but you may not have realized that the reason your team secured a dragon easily was because the enemy was distracted. There will be situations where there is a team fight at a dragon. In those moments, you're stuck between trying to secure the objective and also winning the team fight. Generally, you should focus your effort on the enemy. Putting your focus on the dragon increases your odds of dying. It also speeds up the death of the dragon, which doesn't really help your team. Let the enemy team damage the dragon while you kill them, and hopefully get the dragon in the end as well. Although, if the dragon is close to being dead and this is the late game, it's worth it to take a risk and try to dive in for the final hit. Now, let's talk about pushing towers. As a jungle player, you may not know the best way to contribute to this part of the game. Once the game is past the laning phase, play like this. Do your usual tasks that we've already discussed, and in rhythm, clear minion waves near you. For example, if you stole the enemy's red buff, you should be checking if the mid lane or top lane has minions for you to clear. If you just stole the enemy's blue buff, consider clearing the middle or bottom lane, whichever makes the most sense for the sake of rhythm. This is a must, firstly for gold, but also this will help your team chip away at towers. On top of those things, it also forces the enemy to rotate, creating opportunities. Earlier, we touched on the decision to go back and clear your own buffs if you're actively invading the enemy's jungle. In relation to pushing towers, if you're invading jungle mid or late game, your team is probably nearby. Going back to get your own buffs puts you far away, making you unable to help with pushes and sudden team fights. Speaking of sudden team fights, they happen a lot, often for no reason at all. Players just love fighting, it's really that simple. As a jungle player, you will find yourself in situations where a fight breaks out far away from your current position. Generally, you shouldn't rush across the map to help. Instead, make use of the chaos. Clear lanes near you. You'll make great progress towards victory if you do this instead of rushing over to a fight that you'll be late to. By the time you get there, everything might already be over. Worst case scenario, you run over there and the enemy team finishes you off after already killing your team. Instead, make them regret focusing too heavily on one side. Late game, this is especially dangerous because one player can solo push and win the game, leaving the enemy broken and confused. Of course, if there is a team fight near you and you can realistically join and make a good play, go for it. There are more objective-based tips to give, but they're more about how to play in general and not so much about jungling specifically, so we'll save those for another time. But just as important as everything we've gone over already are the little things. The first thing is actually outside of the actual game. Learn to counterpick. It's easy to fall in love with a character and use them every game. But if you're serious about winning as much as possible, you'll need to counterpick. Pick your hero based on what the enemy and your teammates are using. Surely there are enemy jungle players you often have problems with. This can be avoided if you just learn to counterpick against them. Learn how to play more heroes and make your choice based on what the enemy is playing. We can make a whole video on good counterpick choices, but for now, here are some to consider. This is simply opinion-based, but if you have a counter that you like, don't let us stop you from using it, and be sure to drop a comment. Up next, in the game now, be sure to learn the fastest camp farming method for your heroes. The time adds up if you're farming wrong while the enemy isn't. Here are some examples of incorrectly farming versus doing it properly. Related to farming, please hide in the bushes when getting buffs if the enemy jungler may be nearby. Mostly when you know there is a possibility the enemy will try to interfere. Doing so may make them think that you already got it, and if not, at the very least, they won't see the health bar on the buff, which makes timing any theft a bit harder. Speaking of theft, this part is not as straightforward, but as a jungle player, you need to learn to time your smite. Whether it's to steal a buff or a dragon objective, a difference in timing can decide how the game plays out. It's not as complicated as it might seem. You'll improve just by paying more attention to it. Learn from times when you use your smite too early or too late. It's very easy to overlook the importance of this, but if you're serious about winning, this cannot be ignored. The most important things to remember when trying to make the leap from a decent jungler to a great one are rhythm, smooth movements all over the map, and being in the right place at the right time. Map awareness, specifically predicting enemy movements, and farming properly by getting camps, your own or the enemy's, and clearing waves when it makes sense. Do these things properly, and you'll have no trouble leading your team to victory. Good luck out there in the jungle. Let us know which role we should make a guide for next.